Serving as the spiritual sister series of George Romero's ever-interesting Undead saga after John Russo and Romero's messier divorce than your own parents, 1985's The Return of the Living Dead is my favorite zombie movie.
Do you ever fantasize about being killed?
A great script, a cast's critically crafted chemistry, a spin on zombie mythology that would become the standard, and let us not forget that soundtrack! Then in 1988, just when you thought it was safe to be dead, we got Return of the Living Dead Part 2. Ditching the delicious dread of being dead for dollar store Looney Tunes antics and a second life shunned by critics, fans, and most importantly, the box office. So with the 90s now in full swing, producer Tom Fox fully intended to keep making Living Dead sequels until we're all rotting under the dirt.
No one's ever really gone.
But Trimark would end up buying the film rights and chose to 86 the previous crew and start from scratch.
How did he find out about that? How did you know that?
It's very close. I mean, no one's supposed to know about that.
How did you find out about it?
Please, no more of this.
Brian Yuzna and producer Gary Schmollner were then brought on to inject new blood into the franchise after Yuzna had already directed Bride of Reanimator. The next blockade presented itself when it came to the script. Kenny Myers, who did VFX on the previous movies, provided one potential treatment exploring the origins of the 2,4,5 trioxin gas, as including it was one of the only stipulations Trimark demanded in order to justify the Living Dead moniker. That script was then buried in a shallow grave, and instead John Penney was hired for his intriguing premise.
Zombie Romeo and Juliet.
Yuzna encouraged Penney to explore themes of a doomed romantic affair, having the main character be a zombie, and didn't want it to be a carbon copy of the first flick.
How'd that get in there?
Plus, it wouldn't be a zombie picture without some creatures, full of munching, mashing, and mauling. And I love the fact that the film's end credits begin with no less than 6 different visual effects guys. So grab your gas masks and your favorite naughty 90s attire as we chow down on some sleazy Shakespeare in what I am ready to call the horniest zombie movie ever made. This is The Return of the Living Dead 3. So the film begins with a tragic three-peat as we reveal the ever-reliable
and the never suspicious
United States government conducting above-the-board, certainly not inhumane experiments on a fellow fleshy meatbag. Conducting these crimes against humanity are Colonel Peck, played by James T. Callahan, no relation to Tommy, I hope.
I was checking the, I'm retarded.
And introduces Colonel Reynolds to Sinclair, portrayed by Kent McCord and Sarah Douglas, respectively.
Yeah, I heard about your idea. Something about a steel cage?
An exoskeleton. Yeah, the steel frame allowed me to control the deceased units.
And at the same time offer the mobility to make
them highly effective bioweapons.
My name is Jeff.
Creating a Terminator zombie army is a really fucking awesome idea, and I need someone to make that. Their next test is on this creepy cadaver, played by Clarence Epperson.
This guy's a gangster? His real name is Clarence!
He was an actual homeless guy who production found living in LAX. He required next to no makeup and carried around his own headshot. He had just been an extra in another movie, and now feeling like a big Hollywood superstar, demanded to be chauffeured to set in a limo and put up in a fancy hotel. Mind you, this is a movie that cost $1 to $2 million, so I imagine this was mostly just so they could find him again. We jump over to the beach from The Karate Kid to meet the horny hooligans, the bangin' buddies, the rambunctious reproducers, the scandalous sluts, the procreating peeps, the fucking fools, Mindy and Kurt, played by Melinda Clarke and J. Trevor Edmond.
This is so cool.
Kurt's dad is this big ol' mean fuck Reynolds, while Mindy's all like,
I'm so edgy, nobody understands me.
Getting all gassed up at the prospect of farting around a shady military base.
This is...
So of course our hornball hero wastes no time rushing over there. Back in the lab, the 3 techs string up the lean lemming like a jaundiced Jesus Christ, allowing us a moment to recap the 2,4,5 trioxin gas for anyone who slipped into this theater instead of A Nightmare Before Christmas. Continuing the military angle from the first, where the government used trioxin to gas marijuana fields in '69.
We were going to use it as a weapon against the war on marijuana, and then came that leak in '69.
Nice.
Causing Night of the Living Dead to be made.
That's not possible. I mean, they showed zombies taking over the world. Well, they changed it all around. What really happened was...
And the contained corpses to run amok a few times.
What the fuck are we gonna do now?
Find a phone, call the cops.
What the fuck?
Jesus H. Christ.
Now they're running experiments to equip the army with the aforementioned zombie mech suits.
No, that's the army! You don't want the goddamn army around this place!
Above the rat maze, which was a miniature aside from a few hallway sets and carefully framed roof pieces. These crazy kids get a front row seat to the second worst thing that happened in a chamber full of gas. Something Brian Yuzna and John Penney wanted to expand on specifically was why the zombies crave brains. So they concluded they're actually after your nerves. And where do humans have a big bundle of nerves all neatly packed in a hard chocolate-coated shell?
They have a thin candy shell. Surprised you didn't know that.
I think your brain has a thick candy shell.
They also introduced these blue ballistics that when shot into a zombie, freezes them long enough to contain. Which makes sense they'd figure out some discount compound V, considering this version of the undead are nearly unstoppable.
This is really warped.
Oh god, I know. How do they do it?
On the topic of being unbeatable, one of the faceless fucks, played by actual B-movie director Tony Hickox, gets his fingers nibbled on like he stuck his hand in a tiger cage, and it's fitting the man responsible for so many schlocky classics gets such a fucked demise. The two try tying down Lala, but don't even realize Dr. Honeyspew snacks on some ankle.
Jesus Christ. It didn't hold!
Now, I'd love to delve into the fact that this is the second movie from 1993 where the opening scene has scientists being brutally slaughtered by part of the nature they tried to control. The other being this tiny, independent film you may have heard of once or twice. It was called Jurassic Park.
Clever girl.
But this entire section is overshadowed by a particular cameo. In his third outing in the franchise, the only actor in all 3 Living Dead movies, the once mohawked scuzz and disgusting fucking Drake Bell diddler, Brian White Van Man Peck. Glad the planned return of Don Kelfa and James Karen went tits up so that this fucking fat bitch piece of filth gets to be associated so closely to all 3 movies. Get fucked. Back to the boners, Julie seeing that reanimated body makes her want to gyrate till the end of time.
When that bullet smashed into his skull, the dead guy, I wonder if he could feel anything.
But Kurt can't match that freak and pulls out.
Julie, why don't you just give it a rest?
What? What's the matter?
Julie's got her boobs out the entire scene, in case you were wondering.
No way, Kurt. There was definitely a corpse.
Ramming Phoenix here finishes up with the missus, and after an argument with Daddy-O causes them to go all Halloween ends on his bike, Kurt proves that one crotch grab turns him into a worse driver than the brother in Hereditary. Maybe it's just the way it's shot, but that didn't look very deadly. Either way, that's why you gotta wear a fucking helmet when you ride a bicycle.
Good thing I'm wearing that helmet. Safety first.
Kurt, thinking only with his penis, decides to desperately doom his dame to an eternity of suffering.
Even worse than this one, am I right?
And sneaks back into the lab to give her that goblin gas. So with Jules juiced up, she smooches C-Note and immediately gets attacked by this abomination. They fight the incredible Melting Man, which looks better than the first movie's Yellow Zombie, but not quite as scary as Tarman. But his face splitting open is awesome. With Harvey Undent on the loose, it's more than time for the 1-foot soldier that's been roaming around to get ambushed. Poor bastard. Now that the military's aware of Kurt's crappy call and his dad's giving that "I'm gonna get my fucking belt" face, they gotta get Ghost. They stop at a corner store to grab some munchies before Ghostface shows up. And we see a generic collection of movie thugs.
Hey, you guys. Take this outside, okay?
They try to bolt, but the trigger-happy store owner, played by Dana Lee, causes his own kerfuffle. I like the realistic reaction of this guy getting a gut full of lead.
Let's get the fuck out of here!
Oh, and Julie snags some arm flesh to go.
Julie, we have to go. Where the cops come on!
They get in the mystery machine and screech into a police chase that ends just as well as ones in real life. So with the guy's brains just sitting there, Julie knows it's a sin to waste food. Nom nom nom.
Right.
And as they get stuck in an alleyway, the shop owner gets his revenge on the pig.
Oh, great heavens!
They hit the Ninja Turtles escape route to the 7th Street Bridge for a scene steaming with atmosphere, as we finally reach the canon event where Edward Furlame,
And if someone gets upset, you say, chill out.
Chill out. Dickwad.
has had enough and breaks it off.
What was I thinking? Look at you, you're disgusting!
Yuzna mentioned wanting to continually push Julie to the point in which she loses her humanity.
You brought me back. You should have just left me dead.
Now, I'm no doctor, soul expert, but
Right.
this is that moment. Kurt catches up to his main squeeze on the actual bridge, realizing Mindy decided to take up bungee jumping.
Let me tell you something, All right. Let me tell you something! No!
Nice throw!
And as Kurt rushes down to find her, a mysterious homeless guy follows behind. Riverman, portrayed perfectly by Basil Wallace, warns Kurt that Julie belongs to the streets.
They don't get no deader than that. You don't understand.
But this quirked up white boy is hooked.
Julie, I need to talk.
Baba Booey.
He finds his trash mermaid down the way, still alive and bitchin'.
Why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me?
The goons find the gang, who follow Riverman into the storm drains, followed closely behind by the feds. Yuzna claimed on the DVD commentary that he'd find real homeless people in those tunnels when location scouting. At least he didn't find giggling clowns.
Hello.
Those guys are never friendly.
You're supposed to say 3.
They tuck Julie into Yoda's hut, but as she hue shifts whiter than Michael Jackson, it's obvious his shivering slut is soused.
I want it to be like it was before, but I don't feel the same.
So the logical maneuver in the eyes of Keanu Reeves here, after seeing that heinous shit, is to get busy. After getting brain, Santos, played by Mike Moroff, gets to Riverman.
Where's the money, Lebowski? Where's the fucking money, shithead?
It's down there somewhere. Let me take another look.
Giving Kurt time to take on the tools. Felipe, played by Sal Lopez, Alicia, played by Pia Reyes, and this sick bastard, portrayed by Fabio Urena.
We're gonna do this
The nice and easy way.
But as all seems lost, Mindy reveals her final form. 93% Cenobite, 6% Freddy Krueger, 4% Linnea Quigley zombie, and 2% Hot Topic Tumblr edgelord.
That's 105%.
Any good?
She's also framed identical to Boris Karloff from the clearly inspired Bride of Frankenstein.
We like that.
This whole fiasco parallels self-harm through pain, piercing, and cuts, and her self-destruction feels all too real when you take away all the silly zombie bits. I'm surprised this movie tackles such heavy themes, and through all the sleazy bits aside, still feels tasteful in this respect.
Nice touch.
The piercing scene was heavily censored by the MPAA, and this video too, probably. And at points, the movie begins mirroring a fucking Hellraiser sequel. In fact, this one mutilating scene is better than like 4 of those movies. She gives the fedored fuck some neck, just not the type he expected, and after making pretty easy work of the rest of them, the 3 amigos board themselves in.
She dead, ain't she?
In a nice reworking of elements from the first, Riverman eventually attempts to have his hero moment, begrudgingly taking the homicidal hoe, and we all know that no good deed goes unpunished.
Julie, not him!
Kurt gets trapped with the spicy shitheads, and after discovering Riverman's been river-maimed, Kurt is saved in the nick of time with Mr. Freeze's semen samples.
All right, everyone, chill.
In what is essentially the film's epilogue, we discover the pot-punishing gas is still around, and all of the characters have been caged in this twisted, flesh-eating zoo.
Julie?
With our main attraction being a headgeared Julie, who still has her boobs out, Jesus. Meanwhile, Riverman suffers maybe the worst fate of any decent guy in any zombie movie. Being turned into this mechanical monstrosity. And as Hobocop causes the distraction, Kurt lets Julie out so we can end this puppy on a high note. But this doc should have practiced more with the boomstick.
No lights, no camera, no sound. See?
Knocking out the power, causing the barrel zombies to burst, as well as allow some really unique lighting that feels like a haunted house without being too overbearing.
Motherfucker!
The body count reaches critical mass as all the scientists, doctors, and government goofballs are picked off. Hey, even the movie's writer gets it. Almost out of there, and the creep show hot on their tail. Oh fuck, watch out! His dad desperately pleads for them to come with him, but Kurt, and well, us too I suppose, know there's only one way out of there now that they're both bitten.
Dad, I can't.
So, just like Frank before them, Boney and Clyde turn on the furnace and go out the way they promised.
In a fucking furnace?
No, together. And that was Mortal Zombie. Return of the Living Dead 3. And it was a lot better than I expected. Having only seen the first two entries before, this was a gigantic breath of fresh, toxic air after the last movie was so silly, siphoning all the scares.
Oh, you mean because it fucking sucked?
For starters, I like the idea of there still being glimpses of humanity in the zombies even after they're turned. And every use of it never felt like, oh, we gotta let the characters escape, and more like, aw, there's still a person in there. All the acting is really solid, especially the heavy-hitting Melinda Clarke, who carries this movie alongside the equally impressive J. Trevor Edmond. Kent McCord and the rest of the repugnant scientists are great too. Steve Johnson's VFX work, who also married Linnea Quigley, funnily enough, alongside every other effects house, bringing in some new, fresh designs and scenarios. The barrel massacre at the end was especially exciting. The only downsides I really have with Living Dead 3 is a few scenes with dialogue go on for about 10-15 seconds too long, and the epilogue at the end, while very fun, feels extremely, oh shit, we gotta add some more thrills and toss a better bow on this story. And it's never fun to see the MPAA take a fucking hacksaw to a ton of this movie, like the usual punk bitches they are. All in all, I'm shocked it's taken me this long to get to this movie, as it's a very interesting spin on the zombie subgenre with themes that feel right at home alongside the nihilistic tones of the first film with some good performances and great low-budget creature effects. I'm going to give the Return of the Living Dead, Return of the Redhead. With word of a remake on the way, which I called 3 years ago, I just hope they give the project to an actual fan or talented person to hopefully replicate the dreadful atmosphere of that 1985 classic, because the last few years have felt just as hopeless. I'm Confused Reviews.
If this was the last thing I had to say about Return of the Living Dead, the series, I'd say watch the movies. They're great.
And thanks for watching.
Where we belong.